Welcome back. Now we're going to talk about rapier and cloak. Now, why fight with a cloak? I know some of you are asking, what in the world? A good cloak fight can be a very fun fight. But B, one of the things that training with the cloak is good for is working on your tempo, working on really managing your measure well, really managing your opponent well. It is a slower thing than a dagger, especially a good long heavy one. Once you get it moving, it wants to keep moving, so reversing direction takes a lot longer than snapping a dagger. So you have to think more about your actions. You have to really program what's going to happen and try to make it work. So it really makes you think more about it and stop relying on the twitch reactions you might have with your dagger. I'll lead off by saying that Direct Swinger wrote a really good compendium on cloak work 15 years ago or so, where he goes through a lot of the manuals that have cloaks and discusses what they talk about. So if you can find that online, I'd suggest looking that up if you want to know more about cloaks than what I'm going to show you here today. So first, what is a cloak? A cloak, throughout the historical era that we're talking about, was a garment that was at least waist length, that fit around you, that fastened up the front. So anything that wasn't waist length is a hanky or something else. It wasn't a cloak. Cloaks ranged anything from waist length, knee length, all the way down to ground length. I have one that reaches all the way to the ground. I love using it. It's very slow, but it's a lot of fun to use. So here's one cloak I might use. I'll demonstrate with this one. Another thing that I will use as a cloak is a cassock. Faster, lighter, doesn't give me as much parrying range, but I can play with both of these very well. Okay, so how do I prepare the cloak to be used? The way I suggest, and the way that jives with Capoferro, put my hand on the edge, thumb down, extend it, get it off that right shoulder, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it over to the outside. So my hand is covered, it's wrapped around my arm. I've got the drape coming down. You can actually wrap it twice if you really want to. You've got a good, nice weight on your arm, and you've got this good parrying front that you'll be using in just a moment. So what guard do I use? The first thing I'll say is have your cloak extended at least a little bit. Have at least an L in my arm, pointing it toward my opponent, maybe all the way out. I'll extend my sword, so maybe I'll be here, maybe I'll be here. Capoferro does talk about putting it under the forte of the sword sometimes. Some of the masters talk about withdrawing the sword, hiding the cloak in front of the sword, or in front of the sword. Play with different ideas. The main thing you want to do though is you want to have this drape where you can take away some of the target of your body, and you can push away the sword itself when it comes to you. So next, how do I use the cloak? Some people like to be really flashy. What I'll say to that is that you're giving big tempos. I won't say never do it, just realize that you are giving big tempos. If you can do that, if you can make your opponent move to a position where you are already ready to knock them away with a cloak, more power to you. The way it's described in the manuals, however, is you're using this front edge here to knock away, to protect against your opponent's sword. So what you see is not only do I have this area to knock away a sword, like with my bare hand or with a dagger, I've got this entire drape that does the same thing. Furthermore, I've got the drape of the cloak itself that can hide me behind it, and that I can open and close to move things around. Fabris also talks about keep your cloak near your sword's point, so you can protect your hand with your sword's point, and you can basically create this wedge that I've talked about in the dagger section as well. If you get tired, he says bring it back toward your hilt, but you don't want to open up. You don't want to open up down the middle. That's going to be the death of a cloak fighter. So if you can find Durex paper, it has a whole lot of actions from different masters you can play with. I'll show two possible actions right now. One is from Capoferro, one is a variation of it. So the action is sword cloak forward. I have stringered my opponent on the inside. my opponent has disengaged to come to my outside, I counter disengage, stick my cloak out and attack, and I'm blocking his angle with my cloak. So I would open it up somewhat once I have the sword in hand. A variation of that, again, string around the inside, force my opponent to come around on my outside toward my shoulder. What I might then do is pass forward with my left foot, go into cream, hit, but catch that attack with my cloak side. So, that's it for your introduction to cloak. Remember, use this front edge. Try not to snap and whip it around. Play with different ideas. Walk around your pel. Make sure you can reach under your sword. Make sure you are still keeping that V protection. And if you can, as I said, try and read Mr. Swanger's paper. It's really good. It goes into a lot of detail. Thank you for watching. I hope this is helpful.